everyone. My name is Tina Lombard, and you're watching Joy in Our Town. Do you know that sharing a meal with somebody actually speaks to them more than just social? You can speak to people's spiritual needs, you can speak to people's desires, you can find out more about them when you share a meal. Well, today we have with us Pastor Drew Ross, and he's the senior pastor at Bethlehem Lutheran Church and School, and he's going to be discussing with us what he does to share a meal with the homeless, to perhaps mentor them, to help them out, and to lead them toward maybe a more profitable life. Thank you, Pastor Drew, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
You bet. Now tell us a little bit about your ministry and what you do.
Wonderful. You know, Bethlehem is a is a church and school that's been in existence for a long time. As a church and school, we've been around about 87 years now. The school has been around for about 75 years. And I believe that a large part of our success, especially currently, has to do with our involvement in the community. It has to do with our desire to love people. As a matter of fact, the statement that we say at Bethlehem is love on. Everything is about us love on. How can we love on organizations? How can we love on people? And that in particular has led us to loving on our homeless population on the west side of Denver.
Now what's remarkable is you have one of the largest gatherings you said of homeless people west of Denver. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Every single Thursday evening throughout the year, we have one of the largest gatherings of homeless people on the west side of Denver. It all happens at Bethlehem at a ministry that we call The Table.
The beginning of The Table was actually an interesting story, how we all got together. There was a group of us, about 5 guys, and as we began to brainstorm and think about the future, we realized we had something pretty neat that we were talking about here, not just changing the night of a church service, but really changing a commitment and a mentality of our congregation and how we would meet the needs of our community through partnership, but just through walking alongside folks in need. Sharing a meal, sharing life together, and that was, and really from the get-go, an important part of what The Table was all about. Sitting with each other, no one had any status over anyone else, and we would share a meal together. That was critical.
The Table begins really at 5 o'clock in the evening when anybody can show up and be present. We know that a lot of our homeless friends need to have an opportunity to be removed from the streets. I always say that Bethlehem and The Table is seen as a sanctuary. It sounds like a churchy word, but we say sanctuary because it's a respite from the violence that's on the street. It's a respite from the threats of violence on the street, even the weather that takes place outside. So the doors open at 5 o'clock. 6 o'clock is a dinner for anybody that's there. By 6:45, we have a worship experience with a great band and provide a message every single week. And it's purely an opportunity for people to be together and to receive nourishment for the body and then also their own spiritual self, and we grow in our knowledge and love of Jesus together.
Well, it sounds like there's quite a team that is involved in putting something like this together. So tell us a little bit about your team.
Wonderful. You know, the team deserves a lot of credit. We have volunteers that are the ones that make this ministry happen. And when I say every Thursday, it's every single Thursday throughout the year. Oftentimes I get a phone call that says, you know, it's snowing right now. It's a snow day from school. So is the table going to be on? Yeah.
It's going to be on.
The table's on because the homeless are on the street.
Well, this is very exciting because you said this is all ran by volunteers.
All volunteers. I mean, from our kitchen crew, all volunteers, to we have people that are greeting at the door, to those who are inside, to those who are giving out bus passes, to those who are welcoming people when they get inside. All of it is volunteers. And I should mention this about some of our volunteers too. Everybody serves with their whole heart there. But one area where I spend a lot of time focusing is just on our hospitality. In particular, our homeless population doesn't receive a lot of hospitality throughout the week. Oftentimes when you see somebody outside of a store, or even if they're walking through the store, people turn away, right? We don't look at that. When somebody walks into a restaurant and you know that they're homeless, maybe they're there to try to find a restroom, they're shunned. Right. People turn away. Hospitality isn't present. So a large part of our goal is we want to show radical hospitality. How can we welcome people to the table every single week because we want them to be there, because we love them, and we even use a lot of physical touch. Our homeless population doesn't get a lot of physical touch in life. And we hear these studies even in school where young children and infants need physical touch. That need doesn't go away as
Isn't that
we get
remarkable
older.
to say? That's I'm glad you
The
said
need
that and
doesn't
pointed that
go
out.
away. And so we are filled with high fives and shaking hands and hugs all throughout the whole evening, because that's what we do. We love people.
Well, you said that it can go anywhere from 100 people up to 200 people that gather that are in the homeless. So how many volunteers are there to help service?
It's a great
people?
question. We probably have anywhere at least 20 volunteers every single Thursday.
Okay.
Involved in the whole ministry, if I were to sit down and think of every single volunteer that serves, we're probably talking well over 50 people. But every single Thursday, we have at least 20 volunteers that are making this happen. Even from bus drivers. We go and we pick up a lot of our homeless population in various parts throughout Jefferson County, knowing that not everybody could get there by their own feet. A lot of them do. A lot of them walk miles in order to get there. But we also have pickup spots around Jefferson County, especially in Lakewood, where we pick people up and bring them to the table.
See, so your volunteers, they're getting something out of this. I mean, they're coming back every single week and they're helping this engine turn. It's been turning since 2009, you said?
Yeah, January of 2009.
And it's been going every week. So what are your volunteers, what are they experiencing? Why are they coming back every week to serve?
I gravitated towards the broken. I was broken myself. I was empty inside. I was lonely. I was going through a very dark time. And so I started making friends with these guys, and particularly Dan really befriended me and talked with me, and he would pursue me as well and ask me about how my stuff was going, how my relationship stuff was going, how my marriage, divorce was going. And then through those, walking through fires together was really how it became family, and just an intimacy that I'd never known before, that I'd never knew existed.
So now you're also the director, the president of the Severe Weather Network?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You have a fire in you. You're
Yeah.
not just doing this because you stepped into a certain position. You've got a fire in your belly. Why are you in the ministry, and why does the homeless population, that ministry, why does that trigger something in you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think every single pastor gets asked that question at some point. Why are you doing what it is that you do? And there's answers all over the place. And I don't have a wildly dramatic story, except for the fact that I believe that the scriptures are real. I believe that it's true. I believe that when Jesus speaks in the Bible, he's not saying that to make us feel good. I don't think anything in the Bible is a feel-good story. I think that Jesus is begging of us to love other people. You know, there was D.L. Moody, the great evangelist, had a story at one point where he was talking with a man, and the man wanted to know, how are you such a great evangelist? Why is it that you lead people to Jesus? And he led a man to a window, and he had the man look out the window and said, what do you see out on the street? 3 times he asked this man, and every time the guy said, I see a crowded street, I see people. And eventually D.L. Moody said, I see people who are going to hell. It sounds harsh. If they don't know Jesus. And you'll never lead people to Jesus unless you see people like that, unless you see people who could potentially be separated from their Savior for all time. I don't want people to be separated from their Savior.
And you know what's really striking about your ministry is when you call it the table, because just breaking bread.
Yeah.
I mean, when Jesus broke bread.
Isn't that a biblical model?
It is, and you're sharing a meal. It's something very, very primitive about just breaking bread with somebody and touching them somewhere and moving them emotionally.
I think all of us can tell those stories of that. Our relationships are expanded when we break bread together around the table. I don't know why that's true. However, we see it being true throughout the Bible. And now as we live our daily lives, you know, we can have a conversation like here on couches, and our conversation can be great. But yet if we're to have the same conversation, we go to dinner and we're talking with one another, our families are together, relationships go to a different level.
Yeah, you've got that nurturing. Physically, spiritually, you've got that nurturing. It's the whole symbolism of nurturing. And I know a lot of cultures do that too. They will not talk business with you until you break bread.
Yes, yeah. You know, that's the way that the table is set up, by the way. When you come into Bethlehem and you come to the table, it's all round tables that are set up in a big open space. And we, of course, eat meals around those tables together. And we don't go to a different place when we worship. We stay around the table. Even while we worship together, when we receive communion together, it's all around those same tables. We do family style, because together we're there to love on one another and to see what happens. How is the Spirit going to work around the table?
And what's interesting is we all eat. we're all equal when it comes to you eating food, sitting around a table. We're all equal, we're all sharing, we're all socializing. So when you said the table, it just struck something for me.
Yeah.
Now, let's give your website address real quick.
BethlehemDenver.com.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have to click on worship there, and you'll see the table. So if you want to just type it right into the address on your computer, BethlehemDenver.com/table. But if you go to BethlehemDenver.com, you can easily find us there by starting to click around in the worship opportunities.
Well, it's really nice. What you do is very, very specified, and it's very, very unique. However, would you say it benefit for other churches to try to emulate what you're doing?
Sure, sure. You know, I mean, our homeless population, especially in this Denver metro area, it's pushing out from downtown. There's not really a suburb that exists so much anymore that don't have the homeless population there. And they all need love.
Yes.
They all do.
Well, you were telling me there's a lot of volunteers. You got a lot of people volunteering, which is a strong point for you. But you're saying that there are other churches probably who can do what you're doing, and you'd like to encourage them or show them maybe a map of how to do this? Or
you know, collaboration is the way that we work. Even among the table, the way that we disperse the goods at the table is our church. We don't have all the answers and all the resources, but we have had a lot of success with things, and we have become a place of trust and nurture. And so the people come to the table so that the resources aren't necessarily given by us, but we have local professionals from the Denver area. They're all there at the table.
you said you've got the library, you've got home.
Yeah, Jefferson County libraries are there. In fact, they set up a mobile library there because we want to encourage literacy. We have the Action Center is there. Mean Street is there. Alternatives Pregnancy Center is there. Severe Weather Shelter is there. Jefferson County Human Resources are all there because it's all of us coming together. We're all professionals in different areas, and so that's where the resources can really be found. And when other churches want to do something like this, what we would hope we can do is be another resource for them.
Encouraging, maybe invite them down. Could they come down perhaps to kind of see what you're doing and map it out?
Absolutely. It's not uncommon for church groups, youth groups, families, individuals that hear of us and say, I'd love to volunteer. Can we do that? We can always make room for you. We want to be able to share the love of Jesus and share with other people. How can they do this too? Right.
So the Severe Shelter Network actually works from October through March, have you? But you're all year round with your Thursday
every
night.
Thursday, all year round. It doesn't stop.
So the dinner starts at 6 o'clock. However, the doors open at 5 for fellowship.
Correct.
And that's where the excitement. And then you have the dinner. Then you have the worship service. And then after that, if they need to be sent back on buses to different places, or
we have our buses ready to go. So at the end of every night, we actually even give out a couple bus passes. And the reason for that is we're not about handouts, but we do give out bus passes because I want to be able to guarantee that you have a means to get to the table and get to wherever it is that you were coming from.
That's beautiful.
So after the end of the evening, you can get your bus pass, and then we'll put you on one of our buses to get you back to where you came from, too.
So do you see a lot of return people? I mean, what differences do you see when they enter your door the first time and then when they come back the 7th or 8th time?
That's a really good question. You know, when people come in the first time, I think they're just surprised as to what are you doing? First, why was I just welcomed like that?
Okay, how
and why did that happen? And then when we usher them into the areas around the table and we say, just enjoy togetherness. You're safe here. You are loved here. Hang out, meet some people here. And people, they always kind of look around. Is this really? Is this really what it is? And then you know what's also strange about the table? I say strange. Maybe it's just a blessing from God Himself. Is that when people come once, they tend to come back.
That's not strange. That's a blessing.
That's a blessing.
That's a blessing.
They come back because they receive something that they never expected before. Isn't that also the story of grace so often?
That is exactly what it is. So thank you so much for joining us. And let's go ahead and say the shelter one more time. You only have a few more seconds.
So it's BethlehemDenver.com. That's our website. It's the Bethlehem Lutheran Church and School. And then also when you mention the shelter, we do work in collaboration with the Severe Weather Shelter Network as well.
So great. Well, Pastor Drew, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet. Thank you.
And thank you also for joining us. And if you want some more information, once again, you want to go to www.bethlehemdenver.com. And so until next time, my name is Tina Lombard, and you're watching Joy in Our Town.
You're watching Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Letitia Nesby. Many women in the Denver metro area are suffering from domestic violence. In studio today with us is Dana Jones and Derek Kirkendall from Providence Network to tell us how we can help those women. You guys, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. Derek, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Providence Network, and how you came to be with them.
We started in 1988 when a handful of mission-minded men decided they wanted to get involved in the inner city. and they befriended a pastor, Andy Cannon, and said, "What do you need in the city?" And he said, "A home." And it wasn't long before we had our first home. I'm Derek Kirkendall, the Executive Director of Providence Network, and we have been around for 25 years. We are celebrating 25 years of transforming lives from the inside out. We've served over 3,000 people whose lives have been touched by the experience of living in Christian community. I am a third-generation Coloradan and live in the city of Denver here with my wife and 4 daughters who are aged preschool up to middle school.
Oh,
age.
goodness.
Yes, and I am the Executive Director of Providence Network.
Providence Network have different houses?
Yes, so Providence Network is the ministry, but we own and operate 5 properties in the city. And Joy House is one of those properties, and that's our home. That's a transitional housing program for mothers with their children that are escaping domestic violence.
Well, Dana, tell us a little bit about Joy House and how you came to be with Providence Network and Joy House.
Sure. So I've been with Providence Network since 2008. I've served in a few different capacities. I've been the director of Joy House for 3.5 years. And it's actually been a privilege. I've worked in the Denver nonprofit sector for over 20 years after the Christian community rallied around me early in life for an early intervention. So that's a little bit about my background, but Joy House specifically, as Derek said, serves women and children. We can have 11 families, and they stay with us for 2 years, and it's really a holistic program. So we are addressing the domestic violence, the trauma that they've come out of, and also whatever other troubles in life they've experienced, sometimes addiction, lack of education, you name it. We just look at the individual and see what their needs are and work to address it.
The decision to come down to Joy House was made because I could no longer handle things on my own in several areas. I had 15 years of some toxic relationships. I did a lot of partying when I was younger and what some people would call recreational drug or alcohol use, and it wasn't recreational anymore. I wasn't healthy. I just wasn't healthy. So if I wasn't struggling with drugs or alcohol, then I was struggling with food. If I wasn't struggling with food, then I was struggling with men. If I wasn't struggling with that, I was struggling with setting good boundaries with my kids. And I needed help. I didn't want to be out of control anymore. I wanted to set a good example for my kids. I didn't want to keep flying by the seat of my pants through life, just trying to stay afloat. I wanted to really be healthy, and I wanted to really be intentional about gaining the ability to make choices for my life.
Dana, at Joy House, we realize women are suffering from domestic violence. What are the main causes for the abuse, the reason why women come to Joy House?
Sure. To really answer that question, you have to understand what abuse is.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. So abuse is when one person or one partner exercises power and control over the other person. And it's only about 20% of domestic abuse is violence, physical violence.
Only 20%?
That's correct. Then the other part is, why do abusers abuse? That's the real question, even more than why doesn't a woman leave. The real question is, why does an abuser abuse? And there are many factors that play into somebody's life that might lead them toward those power and control tendencies. It could be the trauma that they experienced in their own childhood. Maybe they identified more with an abusive parent. It could be intense jealousy or feelings of inferiority, or undiagnosed or untreated mental health problems, just to name a few.
Well, speaking of that mental health issue, Derek, how many people in Colorado suffer from some form of abuse, mental and physical?
Well, the most recent statistic I've seen was that there were almost 17,000 reported cases of domestic violence in the state of Colorado. That's only reported, however, so we need to assume that that number is doubled, tripled, quadrupled, because many women that are surviving domestic violence may not report it.
So Derek, as a father of 4 girls, as the director of Providence Network, how important is it for women to understand the love of God during this difficult time and to get out of that abuse?
Well, I think it's critical, and I think it's foundational to them healing. Many women who are coming out of domestic violence are coming out of a unhealthy, codependent relationship where they've internalized this message from their abuser that they're worthless. And so to introduce this concept of a God that loves them, cares about their personal situation, and wants better for them, I believe is critical to them overcoming that abuse in their life.
Immediately we started living together, and I knew something wasn't right. I didn't know what, it's just like, this isn't right. I think it was after 3 months I found that I was pregnant. My boyfriend and his mother wanted me to have an abortion. Took me to several doctors and said, you will have an abortion, you're gonna do this. I was just like, what do I do? Over a period of time he grew through drinking and through drugs, just very abusive. Very, very abusive, physically, mentally, beaten. Like, I'm gonna make you pay for deciding to keep this baby. I remember I was 6 or 7 months pregnant, and there was a stairway of about 30 steps straight down. He had pushed me down the steps, and I remember just laying there thinking, like, why? Like, why would you do that? I think it was after I had my son, the last straw for me was when he had punched me in the head several times. Gashed my eye open, and I was bleeding everywhere, and I fell on the floor, and I caught a reflection of myself in the TV. And I just saw how gashed and how bruised and how just bloody my whole face was. And it caught me off guard, and the baby began to cry. I really believe that me or my son was gonna die that night. And I remember just thinking, like, I have to protect this baby. So this is Andy, and he's the reason why I knew I needed to leave that night, and that I needed to make a change. That's what set me on the road to Providence.
People assume it's just easy to walk away from an abusive relationship. However, every situation is different. Why is it hard for someone to pack up themselves and their children and leave?
Well, the biggest thing is safety concern. They may be believing the threats of their abuser, or it's possible that the situation is so volatile that they could be at risk. So one of the things is it's important to make sure you have a safety plan, and especially I've worked with an advocate to help you create that safety plan and leave safely. The other, again, is the lack of resources, housing, even the shelters, they're 30, 60 days, and then what? You can't rebuild a life in that, so in that time frame.
So how does someone get in touch with Providence Network? Say there's a viewer at home and they themselves are in that situation, or they know someone who needs to get out. What do they do? How do they get a hold of Providence Network?
Sure, probably the easiest is to go directly to our website, which is www.providencenetwork.org. And then they can get connected to the Joy House, and our contact information is there.
Now, if they're scared and at home, is it okay for them to use a computer, or should they call? Do you text? Do you?
Right. So the first step, if they're still in a violent situation, would be to again seek more emergency services. And the easiest way would be to call 211, because 211 is going to have a wide variety of resources, including the domestic violence hotline numbers, and again be connected to an advocate. We're really the next step once they've sought initial safety.
Okay.
And then Joy House would be more the long-term picture to help them rebuild once they've established initial safety.
So Dana and Derek, I show up to Joy House, me, my 2 boys. What happens now? What does that look like?
Well, you're welcome with open arms and a family-like atmosphere with other moms and kids and with the live-in staff.
So does each family have a room, or do they share a room with another mom and children?
That's one of the things I love about Joy House is it is an apartment style building, and so each family actually has their own apartment.
Wow.
And
so moms can cook and...
Exactly. So we don't do a community meal every night because we value the moms and children having their individual family time. But it's one of the really fun things when a woman comes in. They're amazed to see this whole apartment, and we furnish it and have all of the basic supplies for kitchen and bedding and bath.
So Derek, how effective is the transitional house, Joy House?
Well, we think it's very effective. Whether a mom is there one day or the full 2 years, they're impacted in a special way. But statistically, what we've found is about a third of our families graduate the 2-year program. Another third don't quite graduate, but they still leave in a much better place
than when they came.
And then that last third are moms that relapse or have some major program violations where they leave the program. But what's encouraging is many times women in that last third circle back and re-enter the program at a later date.
When I left Joy House, I graduated, and after being in a program for 2 years, I was again at that place where I wanted to just have my life and not really have as much accountability. And got an apartment here in Denver over off Colorado Boulevard, and so my daughter and I moved into that apartment. And so it's a quick reality check, like, oh my gosh, I'm not in community anymore with people who have the same values and vision that I do. When my lease came up, I heard there was an opening at Clausen House and thought, yeah, I want to be back in community. It's more become my way of life as opposed to the fix for my problem.
As we get to the end of our segment, Derek, give us a success story that you know of being at Joy House.
Since being at Providence Network, my life drastically changed in ways I would have never imagined. I've been able to hold and maintain my job while I'm able to be a good mother. I'm able to be a responsible adult and to make wise decisions and not go back into things that I know aren't good. And the impact that it's had on Andy, I've seen Andy grow in ways that have been incredible. And I'm so grateful for Providence Network and all that they've done for me.
How can someone get a hold of you and Providence Network at Joy House?
Easiest way is to go on to our website, www.providencenetwork.org, and you can follow the links to find Joy House contact information.
Alrighty, and if they give us a last encouraging word for that mom who you want to see if they're in that situation.
You can do it. There is life and hope after abuse, and there are a lot of people who want to care for you and support you.
So Jesus cares for you.
Yes.
Jesus loves you, your children,
yes,
and he has hope for you. And you can find it at Providence Network.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here at Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Letitia Nesby. We'll see you next time.